Good afternoon and welcome to today's panel discussion on leadership. I'm Dr. Lisa Fairbairn, Assistant Vice President and Dean of the DeVos Graduate School here at Northwood University. I am delighted to serve as our moderator, and I am even more delighted to welcome you to this 2023 Distinguished Women's Boss Panel. We have several incredible honorees that will be sharing with us their lived experiences related to their own personal leadership journeys. But first, I'd like to share some information about the Distinguished Women Award. Northwood has been honoring amazing women since 1970. Women who've had inspiring careers, women who've impacted their communities in very significant ways, and women who believe in the Northwood idea of freedom and personal responsibility. To our distinguished women, a big thank you for taking the time to join us and share your stories and insights. We have students, faculty, staff, and community members with us this afternoon, so a big Northwood welcome to you all. For almost 3 decades, I've had the pleasure of speaking and interacting with many Northwood students and alumni, and I have a pretty good pulse on the kinds of issues that are top of mind, and I'm confident that the topics that we'll cover will be of interest no matter where you are on your career path. Bios of our distinguished women can be found on our website, www.northwood.edu/DW/awards. And I encourage you to take some time after this panel to go there and read about them and their extraordinary accomplishments. So now I would like to introduce our panelists. We have Brooke Vanderkellen Elba. Brooke is being honored with the Distinguished Young Woman Award. She's grown up in the family business, Snow Machines, Inc., a company based in Midland dedicated to creating and delivering energy-efficient, quality snowmaking solutions to ski resorts around the world. The company also produces dust control and evaporation equipment for several industries, including construction, mining, and food. Brooke leads the global sales team for the company as Vice President of Sales and Marketing. Next is Alice Kroll-Seeloff. Alice is the founder of Detroit Metropolitan Woman magazine. She's a 2-time alumna of Northwood University and has achieved much success and distinction in journalism, marketing, creative writing, and publishing. She received the first and only associate degree in journalism and later earned her bachelor's in business administration. She was the founding president, publisher, and editor-in-chief for 3 highly successful women's magazines and has been a long-serving volunteer for various civic and community organizations. Among her many honors, Alice is most proud of receiving the Dynamic Woman Award by the Women's Economic Club of Detroit. Next, we have Mary Ellen Hess. Mary Ellen serves on our Northwood University Board of Trustees and is also a proud alumna of Northwood University. She believes that Northwood set her up for success through its emphasis on free enterprise and entrepreneurship, foundational learnings that she brought with her to her career in the travel industry. Currently, Mary Ellen is Executive Vice President of Corporate Travel Management and was named a top 50 women in travel in 2019 and again in 2022. Mary Ellen resides in Dallas, Texas. Next, we have Gail Perry Mason. Gail is the founder of Money Matters for Youth. She's also a prolific author and co-host of an award-winning talk show, Building Wealth. She's an accomplished public speaker and respected authority in the financial industry and has run workshops for companies like Chrysler, IBM, MGM, and McDonald's. She's received many honors for her work, including the 2022 Governor Service Award as a lifetime humanitarian. Next, Amy E. Wilson. Amy has been a lawyer for almost 30 years, serving the majority of the time as legal counsel for Dow. She currently serves as general counsel and corporate secretary. A strong advocate for inclusion, diversity, and equity, Amy has been named a top 50 ally executive. She believes in giving back to her community and has done so by supporting many different organizations and sitting on multiple boards. And then finally, we have Lydia Watson. She's the president and CEO of My Michigan Health, where she leads more than 10,000 employees, providers, and volunteers that care for people in 25 counties across Michigan. She attributes her success and passion for helping others to her early years as a Girl Scout, where she earned the coveted first aid badge. Through this experience and others, I'm sure, Lydia's life quest became one of service and a deep desire to help and heal others. Both Amy and Lydia couldn't join us this afternoon, but we look forward to celebrating with them at the gala, honoring these amazing women, these distinguished women, on October 28th. And you'll hear more about that at the end of the panel. So what an amazing group. Thank you, honorees, for being with us this afternoon. Now let's get started. So I will be asking each panelist 3 questions about challenges, successes, and insights they encountered as they progressed in their career. So fun fact, we know that women represent just over half of the US workforce, but they only hold about a third of senior leadership positions. So hearing from each of these women about their own personal journey should be informative and inspiring for us all. The questions, the questions I'll be asking can be grouped into 3 categories. The first is vulnerabilities and taking risks. The second is foundations and inspirations. And the third category is characteristics of success. So we're going to start with vulnerabilities and risk-taking. And we'll start with Brooke, our Distinguished Young Woman Award. We are so happy to start this new tradition of honoring young leaders so that we may celebrate women and their successes at all stages in their career. So Brooke, this question is for you. Have you ever felt like an imposter at work? Why do you think some people feel less secure, and what advice would you give someone to help them feel more confident?
Sure, thank you. I think that's a great question. I look at it as not feeling so much as an imposter. Take it as the opportunity and think of it as a mindset of this is where I want to be in my career. And maybe you're taking stepping stones to get there, and just learn and develop with that. I really think it can be difficult moving from being a student to being in your professional career. Realistically, it takes at least a year or 2 to really understand whatever job you're put into. So just take any opportunity you can to learn, know that you're going to make mistakes, and know that it's okay not to know everything. The best thing you can do is say, I'm not sure, but I will follow up and find that answer for you and follow through with it. And I found throughout my career that really made a big difference. Really, all you have is your name, and it's sort of your brand. So if you become this person of, hey, they may not know everything, but they get stuff done, that's usually who people want to go to, and that's the people that are noticed throughout their career. So I would say don't be afraid to be an imposter, but recognize what you do and don't know, and don't be afraid to say you don't know something, but follow up and continue learning, and eventually you'll be the person in the room that people go to.
Awesome. I've studied imposter syndrome a little bit because I think we all experience it at some point, and it is a common misconception that with imposter syndrome that no one else can relate to how you feel. Yet studies show that about 75% of high achievers experience imposter syndrome at some point in their career. And Harvard Business Review published an article last year with a nifty title. It was like, "You're not an imposter, you're actually pretty amazing." And it talked about all the just tremendous, like, collaboration and teamwork are just kind of skyrocketing with people feeling like an imposter. And it closed with some advice similar to what you did, and that part of the journey to overcoming feeling like an imposter is actually learning from each experience. So I think the advice is like what you said: fear not. If you feel like an imposter at some point in your career, you just need to kind of take it, learn from it, and grow from it. So thanks so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen, the next question is for you, and it's on risk taking. So many, oops, what was that, Dan? No. Many studies reveal that risk takers are more likely to be viewed as leaders, and that risk takers are particularly attractive when it comes to leadership in highly competitive situations. So your question, Mary Ellen, is, as a successful leader, have you ever had to take risks in your career? Could you share an example, including what you learned about yourself?
Oh my goodness, just so many risks. When I was thinking about this particular question, I was like, oh my goodness, where do I begin and end with the list? Because there were so many risks, and absolutely every single project or initiative that I was tapped on the shoulder to lead, I really I have to admit, I mean, I had that fear. I had that fear of failure. I had that fear of being bold and taking that on, something new. But I think it's interesting that taking risk is something I learned early in my career. And actually as a student, really, as a graduate of Northwood, I actually moved from Michigan to Texas, which is where I live now. And that was a big risk, right? I mean, I moved, took on a career in the hospitality and the travel industry, didn't really know anyone. And that was a big risk. But I had lots of family and love around me and God. So, but no, as far as risks go, and that's one notable one. It was a big risk, but I had my family really behind me. But one thing I learned early on in my career, especially with American Express, was where that was how you got attention. That was how you got senior leaders' attention, by being the one to take on the risks and being able to see a new way. And so I really do have a passion for innovation. And so with that comes lots of risks and lots of failure. And so because you can't innovate unless you try new things, right? And but I did learn as part of my climb that was a way to make that climb, was taking on risk, being a risk taker. And so it ended up being through my career, even now, where I'm sort of just that's kind of, I guess, as Brooke was saying, known for being the one, okay, let her let her put the team together and make it happen. And I had a leader one time tell me, Mary Ellen, it's about making progress. And if you failed, you learned something. And as long as we made progress, whether that's we achieved the business initiative or you learned something along the way, we made progress. And I just never forget that that voice and that encouragement. So yeah, so I'm all for bold women, especially, and bold voices as leaders.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that insight. When I saw this as a panel question, I did a little digging and I found a recent study that said 69% of women are willing to take small risks to advance their career, but only 43% are willing to take the bigger risks that typically bolster their career. So this is a really interesting topic, and can't thank you enough for sharing your insights there. Brooke, I'm going to go back to you because it's kind of it could be a vulnerability related to perfectionism. So the question is, do you agree that finished is better than perfect?
I think that's a really great question. And I also think it's really dependent on what you are working on. I've witnessed firsthand people that will have a PowerPoint presentation and they're tweaking fonts and everything, and you can just circle around for days doing that. So in that extent, I think that there's always some sort of level that you can just kind of go in a circle. But for things like engineering, for large product launches, things like that, you need to be pretty close to perfect. And so just finding that balance of what really needs to be 90% of the way there versus what needs to be 100% of the way there, and just being confident in knowing that, I think that'll really help with your time management and prioritizing what really needs to be done. So that's more of where I see. Sometimes finish is better than 100% perfect. It really matters on what the end goal is and what sort of the risks are with it.
Awesome. So in some cases, it could be a vulnerability for sure.
Yes.
I love the work of Brené Brown, who I'm sure you all know is a very well-known researcher in these areas. And her research suggests that, let me get this right, that vulnerability is the only path to courage. And we all know that leadership takes courage. So just great discussions, Brooke and Mary Ellen, on this topic. So thank you so much. So our next category of questions is related to like foundations and inspirations in one's career. So first jobs are important foundations in developing skills, gaining experience, building networks, and building confidence. So Alice, the question is, how did you secure your first job after graduation from Northwood, and what did you learn?
Well, I was on an elevator in the Hudson Company, and I was looking at a sign above the elevator, and it said Hudson's White Sale. And I said to my friend, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. I just found out you could buy colored sheets at a white sale. We laughed about it. And some gentleman tapped me on the shoulder and said, well, what would you call it if not a white sale? And I looked at him, simply said, I would call it a colorful white sale at least. And he said, here's my card, call me. And he hired me. So I was hired on an elevator, voicing my own opinion, which I have done all my life, which is a good thing. And I also, back to the previous question, believe that 100% you have to finish the job. Perfection will come later, if ever, but whatever job you're given, you have to finish it first. So that's the best I can tell you. Hired on an elevator.
That's wonderful. So Alice, or to Alice and or anybody, when you think about your first job, were there any lessons that you had in that first job that are still really important to you today, that were like so foundational?
Yes, you always want your boss's job.
Okay.
I always wanted my boss's job, no matter what job I had. I remember that feeling from my very first job. I thought it was so glorious to be the head copywriter, and I was just a runner in the proofroom when I got hired. But I ended up being the head copywriter as I moved through life. So that would be my lesson. Yeah, I was always hungry.
That's great. Does anybody else want to share on that topic about any lessons that you still have with you today from your first job?
I mean, we can adjust that.
I can add a little bit to that. So it's interesting because in my first job, which was with Hilton Hotels, I was placed right out of Northwood. I was recruited to, and that's why I moved to Texas. And it was interesting because, again, a brand new city, brand new place to live, and all that comes with that. But I think I just was so eager. I mean, I was on a mission. I mean, I was one of those students that got out of Northwood in 3 years. I was, and ended up with 2 degrees in 3 years, and I knew I wanted to go to the top. So similar to what we talked about earlier, I was just eager beaver to take on any role, that was going to accelerate me up the food chain. And honestly, I do remember at that time, I was in my 20s, and people would talk about being 40, and I was like, I cannot wait till I'm 40 because I am going to be so successful. Like, I just had this in my head. And so I did get a mentor while I was with Hilton. They recognized that I had this mission, and so I think that was really great. And it actually came in handy. I mean, because I ended up with a really weird situation where I had to deal with sexual harassment. And I know that's kind of a curveball to throw out in this webinar, but this podcast, but it was amazing that frankly, how the company responded, how he helped me through it, but also how I handled it. Because I really, again, that was the foundation that I had from Northwood and the values that I had as a person. That was where I learned, really. I learned that that happens and it's real. And you have to have those boundaries and draw those lines. And you know what? It's never happened to me again. It never happened to me again. And so I think I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how to handle myself as a woman. situations to put myself in and not put myself in at a very young age. And so I'm grateful at how Hilton handled that situation, but also proud of the foundation that I had and the values that I had that I brought with me from Northwood. So that was kind of a heavy answer. I'm not sure you were expecting that one, but
that was wonderful. But you brought
yeah,
up
that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
You brought up mentors, and so I had a mentor question. I'm gonna move that up for you. So have you had mentors in your career? Obviously, the answer is yes. But how did those relationships come about, and what was most helpful about having a mentor?
Well, I alluded to that at Northwood. The Professor Bill Spalding was just an amazing mentor for me, and could see again my desire of excelling in my career, and so he helped me get placed with 2 internships that I was at Northwood, and then ultimately placed at Hilton. But even beyond that, I've had several mentors through my career, and it's interesting because most of them were men. So I'm really big on that now in the travel industry. I'm actually just last year I helped launch for the global business travel industry and the Global Business Travel Association a platform for mentoring where people can go and get one-to-one advice. You can get, basically it's like a dating app. You get paired up, you fill out a profile as a mentor or mentee, and then you get matched with people that you think you could learn from, and whatever situation that is. And so it's I'm really proud that I've been able to help the travel industry get that in place, because it's a very female dominated industry, and women need to hear these experiences that we have to share. And so it's really awesome that we have that platform. But definitely the mentors that I've had, no doubt, just had a tremendous impact on my life, and I've been blessed to have some great ones. Ken Chenault from American Express, and another several gentlemen. But it's for any men that are listening. We need the allyship as women, and those men to support us. So yeah, no, I'm a big promoter of a mentorship, and I actually have I think 3 or 4 right now that I'm actively mentoring in the travel industry. So it really, with the team I lead, technically I have over 20, but literally in a true mentoring relationship. So one thing I would say about that, just, I know I'm kind of going on, but is it is a two-way thing, and it's important for the mentor to come ready with questions. And so when we have those conversations, and so I think that was one thing I did learn myself, that a lot of it is accepting the allyship, then appreciating their time and schedule, and being kind of prescriptive with, okay, these are the things I need to tackle. Let's talk about this, and being very clear about what questions I have, and that I can learn from them. So hopefully that helped answer that question.
Yeah, that was just brilliant. So thank you. Yeah, we know that having role models, mentors is critical for both personal and professional growth. And I remember a study that said that the 5 people you spend the most time with are the ones you end up imitating the most. So that's kind of some interesting food for thought as we think about surrounding ourselves with others, mentors and others, right, to help set us up for success in our future. So Gail, the next question is for you. I know you're only by audio, but the question is related to inspiration. Who has inspired you in your life, and how did that play out in your career? Gail, are you there? Well, maybe we'll try to get her back, Dan, but would anybody else like to share their thoughts on who may have inspired you in your life, and how did that impact your career?
I can jump in. I grew up in a family business. So obviously my father has been really instrumental in terms of being an inspiration to me. It's funny to grow up in a family business, because I think you don't realize how intelligent your parents can be until you're older. And he oftentimes is sharing words of wisdom. The other day he sent me an interview that Roger Federer did. He's a professional tennis player, and it said, it's nice to be important, but it's also important to be nice. And that's the philosophy he shares with his children. I also felt like that with my father. It's just always super important to be really nice and kind to people. And I think that has always been a great philosophy, and just something to look up to and strive to be. And I think it's helped me get to where I have been today. So yeah, that I don't know if that answered your question, but
Thank you so much. Gail, are you there?
If not, I can add a little bit if you'd like,
That
Lisa.
would be wonderful.
Yeah, I know. I mentioned Ken Chenault from American Express, and I'll never forget, because I had gotten married, and this was when I got remarried, and he said, this was back in, actually was 2010, and so this explains the goofy name that I have, the hyphen name, but you know, he's like, okay, Mary Ellen, so what's the deal? Are you going to change your name? And because George was my maiden name, which I had kept in my career. And so anyway, and I was like, well, yes, I've decided, you know, I'm getting married, and actually I kind of had dialed down a little bit in my career at that point, because now I had four teenagers. So I'm like, yeah, I'm finally changing my name, Mary Ellen Hess. And he's like, oh my gosh, you know, we need to rethink that. And it was interesting, because he really pointed out, more so than the name thing, he pointed out to me, he said, you have a personal brand. You've built up which is a blessing, that had been able to build up a personal brand. And he's like, there's a lot of equity in that, in people knowing you. But I think it was not even necessarily but how the name, but the leader that I was. And so anyway, he definitely made me really think, not of course about the name. I have changed it now. I am going by Mary Ellen Hess in my professional career. I did end up changing it a few years ago, but you know, after being married now 13 years, my husband and I just celebrated our anniversary. I'm like, okay, I'm changing my name. But I think it was more of just him pointing out to me, well, me acknowledging, first of all, that I had established a personal brand, which I hadn't really done, honestly, which I know sounds crazy, but I hadn't even acknowledged myself. Wow, yeah, I guess I have. But then secondly, for just kind of pointing that out, you know, and so what Brooke said about having, you know, doing the right thing, just because people, you know, they watch. And as a leader, you do have, you know, kind of all eyes on you. And so I certainly want to be known as someone with integrity and inspiring and to your point, a nice person, a good person, someone that, you know, treats people well. So that personal brand it's an important thing as you build your career. Think about that. Keep that in mind as you know, make your choices. And even with where you go work.
I'm looking at it.
Excellent. Thank you. Any word from Gail?
10:30.
So as I think about the discussions we've had in this kind of category of questions, which was called Foundations and Inspirations, it kind of takes me back to the literature in women's leadership about confidence and connections having a real impact on a woman's ability to lead. And so as we've heard just in these most recent discussions, the importance of career foundations, even your first job, learning from those that inspire you and having mentors, that kind of really strikes a chord. Like, though women, so many women want to lead, they're often held back by a lack of confidence. And that lack of confidence sometimes can come from feeling like you don't have enough connections to leverage or draw support from. So just really great advice from everyone about using every experience to build your foundation, whether it's your first job or your parents, and to build your professional network through mentoring and others, and ultimately to help build your confidence. So thank you all so much. So now I have a fun time capsule question. This is for Alice.
Oh dear.
Alice, what was it like in the 1960s for a woman in the workplace compared to today?
It was so different. I would love to be a young worker today. I would love it. Look out. But back then, we were given employee handbooks that said we had to wear seams in our hosiery. There were no pants. The women couldn't smoke in their office. They had to go to the ladies' lounge. And there were no female supervisors. My mentors all along have been men, but that's the era that I worked in. It's so much more fun today to be in the workforce. I would love to go back and jump in, but the memories are the best.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So our final category of questions is related to our last category of questions is going to be having you reflect on different characteristics of success. I'd like to start with Gail if she's back. I'm guessing she's not. Gail, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Gail.
You can hear me?
Yes, yay.
Oh my God! I've been itching to get on. I am like, oh my God. Okay, I have tried everything with this computer.
Well, we're glad you are here. So I don't know, did you hear the,
for not
no need to apologize.
I apologize, Lisa. Thank you. The panel's been amazing. So thank you so much. And I have just been itching to say different things from inspiration to everything. So
let's go back to so a little bit ago, I wanted to pose the question to you: who has inspired you in your life, and how did that play out in your career? Would you be willing to share that with us now?
Sure, and I will definitely make it short. I've been trying to. It was like, oh,
you have plenty of time. You're good.
No, thank you. So, who inspired me was a middle-aged woman who never had an opportunity to go to college. I was left at the hospital, at this hospital called Women's Hospital. So anyway, I was put in foster care. So this lady who was in her 50s and I was 4, and she took me in, and she was like, okay, I don't have an opportunity to go to college. I want you to go to college. I want you to do this. I want you to do. So my whole life I spent trying to make her proud of me because we're related by love. So I always, and then the reason she inspired me, because when I was, given her for adoption, orphanage, foster care, everything, I was labeled special needs and hard to place. They said, I'll never walk or never talk. And a doctor came over and prescribed love. So her mother came over, which was my grandmother. And anyway, love means let obstacles vanish effortlessly. So she gave me love, she inspired me, and I did everything in my power. And I was in my 20s when she passed away because she was older when she adopted me. But to this day, I still do that. And what I do with a lot of our youth in the city of Detroit, with Money Matters for Youth, I use that same analogy saying, hey, they just need love. So it inspired me, whether it's my career and being, a vice president at a financial firm, or whether it inspires me to, especially to deal with our youth. So that's the way I overcome, so obstacles, and it inspires me and everything else. So anyway, but thank you. I'm just so glad you can hear me.
That's a beautiful story, Gail. So thank you very, very much. I'm going to get you caught up with questions, and I'm going to hand you another question, if you don't mind. because we kind of changed to the category of characteristics of success. So my question for you is, how do you define professional success?
Professional success is success benefits others first. When what you do benefits the next generation. Success is when you can get on the elevator at level 3, send it down to the next generation, and they go to level 7. It's about sending the elevator back down. It's also about giving somebody else a seat at the table. I have something called a +1 strategy. That's what I use for my success. And success is when you have a seat at the table and you bring somebody with you. It's a +1 strategy. Sometimes I make it a +10 strategy. I bring 10 people with me. But success is when you can bring other people to the table and you do it. That's real success because it benefits others first.
And I can see a connection between your inspiration answer and just kind of how that weaves into the professional success question. So thank you so much. I love that +1, +10. That's a really good concept.
And it's not that many women. I'm so glad the one lady from, the one amazing woman who worked at American Express is on today, and how she talked about her success. I have somebody named Walter Booker who works here. We were just talking about American Express, and I love when we're in the financial service industry, it's so difficult to get ahead. So, I love what she has done also. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
But yeah, I was going to say it's such a good point because, I got muted. I got muted. I think you unmuted me. I think you unmuted me and I muted me. But okay, here we go. I was just going to say one thing about that. It's really important to speak up in the boardroom, and that's something that I. Can you hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, you can. Okay, because I can't tell if I'm muted or not. And so to the point of bringing others up, like when you see, so I really have been working on this the last few years. When I see like another woman who's trying to, make a presentation and get her point across, and maybe she's more junior to some of the other people in the room, or just somebody that a male is being rude to, or people are being rude to, or not allowing her a platform. I really make an effort to point out or try to, extend that arm to help that person get whatever it is they're trying to get across. And I think a lot of times, just in the past, you sort of would see that happen to a woman, and we weren't as bold as we are now, or getting more and more bold to kind of stand up for each other. And when we see that behavior happening, let's sticking together, I guess, if you will. And doing it obviously in a polite way and not in a disruptive way, but I'm way more tuned into it now, and I think that's just the conversation. What Gail was saying, it's just the conversation of people having a voice, no matter what gender you are, frankly, that we're in it together, and so anyway.
Great insights. Thank you, Mary Ellen. Brooke, a similar question to you. What characteristic traits do you value in successful people?
I think first and foremost, any very successful person I've encountered is always extremely curious. They're always asking, seems like, a million questions, and they're very engaged. It's not like they're just doing the token question to try to bring up a topic of conversation. They're always asking more and more to try to understand. And as a leader, you need to be able to make decisions based off of limited information. So it's extremely important to understand what questions you need to ask and what information you need to be able to make a decision. The second trait, I think, is just trying to be a positive person and be motivating to those around you. It can be really easy if something goes not the right way to get in a negative cycle. So I think it's important to always try to bring the team together and stay positive and be that person to motivate everyone, and realize and take a step back of hey, we're doing this for the bigger picture, and because we love our customers, we've got some great products, and don't lose sight in that. And we're successful just because we have one problem. Don't let it ruin your whole week. And I think the third one is, again, just being humble, realizing that you're working with so many talented people and leaning on them. And just, again, being humble. And if you recognize that there's people that want to help you and people that want to make things better, I think that as a team, you'll always find success. So those, I think, are my three would be curiosity, humble, and staying positive.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to weigh in on how you define professional success?
I have an opinion on that.
Wonderful, Alice.
I have always felt if I go into a room, whether I'm with people who are working for me or on my same level or my superiors are there, if they trust me, trust is the key. If they say, throw the ball to Alice and let her see what she can do with it, even if I didn't know what I was doing with the ball once I got it, I would go, okay, and be competitive and go after that goal. But I think success I would measure in the people that have trusted me throughout my career.
That's really insightful. Thank you, Alice. So let's shift gears a little bit, still kind of related to success, and because obviously all of your careers have been successful, but Mary Ellen and Gail, I'm going to ask you the same question. Let's start with Mary Ellen. Has your career been a ladder or a jungle gym? And can you explain your path, your career path, including the range of jobs or careers that you've had?
Okay, well, I love that question. It definitely felt like a climb. But I was just fortunate to have a really fast climb, because I took on those risks, right? And I took on a lot of those just big initiatives, and but then I definitely went jungle gym for a little while. So it's funny that, when I was thinking about this one, so the climb was awesome, and it was blessed to be in a couple of really high growth businesses, and just had an amazing career. Some of us there was a group of us that left American Express, and we went and started up another travel company, which is called BCD Travel now, and so we had just a great run there. I left because I got equity in the company, which was awesome to be a founding partner of that business. It was $250 million in sales, when I started. After 17 years, it was $15 billion when I left. So, and I had all kinds of roles, including I was president of one of the presidents of the company, one of the divisions. I ran sales. I ran global accounts. I did all kinds of stuff. Just started a consulting practice, but so that was where the kind of jungle gym thing started. Where it, after 17 years, a lot of us, there were in 2010 there was some stuff that went on in the market where a lot of people got out of businesses. So I was trying to figure out, okay, I need to dial down, and I got married. That's when I mentioned I got remarried. And so actually our CEO at the time, he's like, okay, we need to start this consulting practice, which is this much smaller division. And let's, so I actually went back to school and took that to write the business plan for that. But anyway, it was so stepping backwards after you've been at the top is not an easy thing to do. It really isn't. Personally, I think especially, well, maybe as a man too, but it was not easy as a woman, because I was basically saying I need to put my family first. Got remarried, now I have 4 teenagers. I need to be home more. I was literally on the road 85% of the time, traveling all over the world. And so talk about taking a risk. I was like, I just need to step back. And so I took myself off the executive committee and again, but there was a change in leadership, and the new CEO came in, didn't like that so much, and I think he'd worked in the organization, so it wasn't like, we didn't know each other, but I think he just didn't accept. He was like, well, he just wasn't supportive of me trying to put my family first for a period of time, or I guess acknowledging like all that I had done. That was what blew me away, is I was just like, wow, I've given my life to this company and built this company. So anyway, I knew it got toxic. And it was time for me to go. And fortunately, I did go back. I went back to American Express, actually, where they, embrace that. And I think that's the thing, I guess the message I wanted to get across to students right now is you need to recognize there's going to be times in your life when you're going to dial up and you're going to dial down. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And there are places, there's organizations out there that understand that especially for women and raising families. So I guess that's, something for me that I found to be very important, was to get into an environment that allowed that. Now I've dialed back up. I'm an empty nester now. So talk about the junk. I felt like it was a jungle gym. It was a jungle gym for sure during the last probably 15 years. And now I'm way dialed back up. I'm at an airport now, so I'm traveling again a lot, but I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm so grateful that I did what I did so I could be home during that time when my kids needed me there. And now they're off on their own and doing great. And so I was able to dial back up again. But it was risky. I really thought, I had that fear of, well, what if I want to dial back up and people think I'm old and have nothing to contribute. But it absolutely did not turn out that way for me. So yeah, so for sure, jungle gym.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. What a successful story. Gail, same question for you. Has your career been a ladder or a jungle gym, and what different jobs have you held?
It's been a jungle gym, and I will tell you, I've just been through every obstacle you could think of when it comes to. So I went away to college. Anyway, I needed a job. I had my son, my oldest son, and I had him, and I was broke. So a brokerage firm. I sent out my resume everywhere, and a brokerage firm called me. And I'm like, oh my God, it's God. I'm broke, brokerage firm. Didn't even know what a brokerage firm was. I was majored in something totally different, in biology. So fast forward, I became a receptionist at a brokerage firm, and people kept coming in with a ton of money, not a lot of women, and not anyone who looks like me. So I was like, oh my God, I want to make sure I teach young women how to invest, because I saw people coming in with money. So it's like, so I ended up, success leaves clues, and you got to case the situation out. Case means copy and steal everything. So that's why I ended up learning. So I ended up going into people's accounts, looking at what they were buying and all this stuff, and became a secretary. I got promoted to a secretary. And then I ended up, and I said copy and steal everything, Series 7, Series 65, Series, all these exams. I ended up copying somebody's books who I was a secretary for, on how to study for the exams, because I said, can I become a financial advisor? I was actually told, no, I'm a single mother. There's no way, and you'll never pass the exams, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the secretary, this is how women stick together. The secretary who sat next to me paid for my exams. So fast forward, I passed the exams. They were like, Gail, no, you're a licensed secretary now. And I ended up reading about John Rogers. Melody Hobson was an intern. I don't know if you all know who Melody Hobson is, married to George Lucas, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I called up, Melody answered the phone. Melody's my girl to this day. Melody Hobson answers the phone, and I said, look, I'm licensed. This is who I am, blah, blah, blah. Can you come to Detroit and put on a seminar? I ended up putting on a seminar in Detroit. I learned how to write press releases. I learned how to go to different organizations and get this out. I had over 200 people RSVP, no money to pay for it. So I took a job as a waitress at night, went to school at night, and ended up putting on this seminar. So fast forward, I had 200 people out, and that night, Melody Hobson, John Rogers, all of us sat there, and we opened up 100 accounts for people of color in the city of Detroit. Put them back to my job. My job was like, yeah, we don't even want these little bitty accounts. And I just boo-hooed and started crying. And they said, well, your license, we're going to give you 90 days. If you don't hit these numbers and all these goals, we're going to give you a chair with wheels on it. You have to roll back over and try to be a secretary, but you can try for 90 days, and we're going to give you no support. We're not going to invest in you because we know you're never going to make it. Well, wow. Then I became a VP, and I kept just going. So fast forward. So this is why I have people come in my office, work for me as an intern. I put them on my payroll because I want to give them an opportunity. So, anyway, that's my story, and I had to go through a lot of obstacles, but I would never change anything that I ever had to go through. I climbed the ladder from receptionist, secretary to vice president.
Wow, amazing. Both Gail and Mary Ellen, thank you so much for sharing. That's always an interesting question to ask, and your career paths are very interesting and, of course, successful. And it's just a great reminder, I think, for all of us that whatever your journey, whether it's straight like a ladder, how Mary Ellen started out, or not, if it turns into a jungle gym, it's important to embrace the road bumps, the changes in directions, and the opportunities, and just always look for those lessons that will shape your personal and professional growth. So thank you again. A final question that's prepared is for Alice. This is a fun one too. Have you ever hired a Northwood graduate, and what made them successful?
I have. Trick question. I have actually. Not being in HR, I didn't see every resume, but if a resume ever came across my desk and it was a Northwood graduate, whether I was going to hire them or not, I interviewed them. I gave them time. I guess you could say I tried to mentor several of them. I ended up hiring 3. One as an editorial assistant and 2 in sales. But it was the Northwood graduate that caught my eye, and I asked my assistant to always circle it when one came through. So yes, I think it's important to let people know when you're looking for a job that you understand free enterprise and you respect the Northwood idea. And out there's a lot of us now over the past 60 years that are going to be looking at resumes, and it's an important thing for you to highlight as you go forward on your ladder.
That is such great advice. And of course, as an educational institution, our graduates are our proof points, like their successes is our success, right? And so I've been here 27 years at the university, and every single year, it's just been amazing experience to see how our students transform in their time with us. You know, right away, they're immersed into industry tested curriculum. They gain a better understanding of the impact of free enterprise, personal responsibility, freedoms, and, you know, having an entrepreneurial spirit. And then they have many applied or experiential learning opportunities. And I really think that sets them apart. So like when they graduate, I mean, I just hear this from students all the time. They're really ready to make a difference on day one in whatever they choose to do in their career, in their communities, and in the lives of others. And that's really special. So thank you for that question and your answer. So I think we've got 5:54. I think we're going to close. And we have the closing slide up. So just again, thank you. This has been a fantastic hour of sharing. A big heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you on our panel. So much collective wisdom for our students and for all of us. I mean, I learned so much that we'll take with us to reflect on in our careers and really in our life. So I can't say enough how grateful we are for your time. And thank you to our audience for joining us. Your interest and support is always very much appreciated. And finally, we would like to invite you and hope to see you at the Distinguished Women's Award Gala on October 28th here in Midland at the H Hotel. And you see the web link for more information, and you click on there. You can read about the Distinguished Women honorees in more depth. And there were 2 that weren't here that will be at the event on the 28th. And you can also purchase tickets and attend and just celebrate women in leadership and these women in particular. So thank you so much to everyone, and have a great night.